of the most crucial things about working in 3D and inside of Revit is the ability to collaborate actively and accurately, sorry. And what makes it really easy is a tool called Copy Monitor inside of Revit. It's been around for almost as long as I can remember in Revit, and it really allows you to keep an eye on the components that are of importance to you when you're working collaboratively either internally or with external teams in Autodesk Revit. To demonstrate that, I'm just going to create a new mechanical file inside of Revit, and I'm going to insert a linked Revit file. So let's just use a copy of the sample file that I've stored on my desktop to stop me not being able to edit it, and I'm going to link that in. So let's imagine that we're designing the HVAC around these accessible toilets. And maybe what I want to do is keep an eye on what's going on here as the architect goes through their changes and their updates so that I can be informed of what those changes and updates are if they're going to affect my files. I can go to the Collaborate tab. This is full Revit, not Revit LT. And under Collaborate, I can go in and I've got Copy Monitor. I can copy monitor either from the current project or selecting a link. I want to select a link and choose the Revit file in question, or indeed any other linked file that you have. I do have some options that I can work with. It's worth you having a look through there. What this will control is, okay, if I copy a level, what type is it going to use? If I copy a wall, what type it's going to use? I'm leaving that all default for the purpose of today, but from your perspective, you want to set it and make sure it's working correctly. I'm going to choose to copy multiple components, and I'm going to select a few components that I am collaborating around inside of this model. By holding Control, I can select as many as I need. Once I've done, I can finish. What this will do is it will put this little icon here next to the walls, and it will basically create a link between those components inside of the link file and inside of Revit. Once they're copied, I can monitor them. If I choose Monitor, I can go away and select to monitor individual files, or individual components that I have copied. That might be one or that might be many. You can do that as many times as you need to. We can also change any coordination settings. So if I've got some very, very specific component like these pieces of plumbing fittings and fixtures here, I can come in and choose what I want to do with those. So when it copies, do I want to copy the components individually? Do I want to batch copy them, or do I want to ignore them? So really go in and define your options to suit your discipline and the way in which you're wanting to work. If I save the file here now, let's just save it on my desktop as project 2 will do for the purpose of this. If I go and look in 3D and select that link and just temporarily hide it, you'll see that I actually have now walls inside of my model. Those walls exist, and they are my walls that I have created inside of my model. So that's one thing to bear in mind. If I was going through the process and when I'd eventually get to the point of maybe saving this out as an IFC or pushing this to someone else, I would want to make sure that those walls are not part of that export. So I would turn them off or control your export options so that those walls are not included, because they are only there for the purpose of this copy monitor workflow. So let's bring the link back on and let's show you the process. So let's unhide the link. Let's go back to my floor plan and hit save. Let's close this down, and let's imagine now that I am the architect and I'm going to make a design change. So I'm going to open up my model. Obviously this could be internally if you're multidiscipline. This might be an external company just sending you a new revision or a new version. But I'm going to come into that exact same location on level 1, and I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to drag this wall out here. I'm going to drag this wall out here, and I'm going to grab this wall and make it a different angle. So I'm going to upset some of Revit rooms and references and things like that. I don't really mind for the purpose of this. I've made some changes. I'm going to save those changes on my desktop. The file is read-only. If you're using one of the default sample files, just make sure that you don't set it as read-only, or remove that read-only flag, because otherwise you won't be able to save over the top. And then once that's saved, I'm just going to close that down. And here's the key. If I now open that back up from my file, Revit's going to use coordination review because I chose copy monitor. What monitor will do is it will monitor those components that you've copied and show us if something has changed. So it's showing me here that I've got something in this link has changed. I can press OK, and then Revit will start going through those systematically. So if I go to collaborate, if I look over here at coordination review, I can say select link and select the link in question. This is then going to go in and show me all of the different components that have changed. I can select them. I can go to show. It's going to highlight the components. Sometimes it does a better view than others, but if you know where they are, because that's where you've copy monitored them, you can zoom in. And you can see here that Revit is selecting both the original wall and where that is now. And I've got actions. So I can say, against this, the center lines are different. I actually need to make that change. So I'm going to modify my wall to suit. This one, I actually want to say, well, let's postpone that because that does a big design change. So we need to ask the architect about that change before we make anything there. And we can add comments as we need to onto that particular file. We can also accept the difference. So we've got a situation here where this wall and this wall are now miles apart. So rather than rejecting it, I can choose to actively accept the difference, and I can get, let's just select that link back up again. And I can get Revit to essentially say, I accept the difference between the two. And at that point, it's essentially going to keep your component where it is. So we can either say, move mine to match, or we can say, question the difference or accept the difference. All this is useful for, and the benefit here is notifying you of the things that have changed. So if I've got some ductwork or something that's related to those walls, I will be notified that it's moved, and I will be able to see that actively on my screen. So Copy Monitor is a really, really important tool when you're actively collaborating and working on your projects inside of Revit.